Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And today, what we have for you are 4 great decks. We've got 2 decks that have Hulkling and 2 without, including some top player theories and thoughts about Hulkling after the first day or so of the card's existence. Let's begin with Raven's the deck. Raven is an amazing player who also streams a bunch of Hearthstone and such, and has created this really cool high evolutionary Ajax Annihilus mishmash. I found a version of this while I was away over the past week, and I had a lot of success with it. So when Raven posted it, now that I knew who made it, because I just found it on Untapped at the time, I was like, oh, I absolutely have to share this. So this list is very cool. It's got a lot of power to it. It's got a lot of different play lines to it. So if you like decisions, this is going to be the deck for you. If you'd like to check out Raven, please check out Raven on twitch.tv/RavenHS. If you're looking for him on Twitter, it'll be RavenCast. For this deck, Man-Thing can be Thing or Cyclops. Man-Thing is phenomenal here, but not a requirement. Cersei or Annie can be Lady Deathstrike. If you have Cersei or Annie, you're welcome to not play Deathstrike. Instead, you can try Cassandra Nova, Thing, or Cyclops in that spot as well. High Evolutionary and Ajax are the 2 required cards, although you really do want either Cersei or Annihilus if you're going to be running Sentry in this list. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Hopefully that's all clear. Cool. Turn by turn. So again, I played this during that one day that I had semi-free over my vacation, and I spent a lot of time chesting a lot of decks, and just like I had fallen to about 2,000, and I climbed back into to 800 over the course of the day, just kind of rocking with a bunch of decks. This is one of those decks that I had a lot of success with. Turn 1, you play Hood. Turn 2 is Scorpion, or Hood or Demon. And you're fine if you have to pass 1 and 2. Scorpion's a nice card for this deck, right? Hood's a nice card for this deck because you have Annihilus, but none of them are requirements. They're not what you're about. What you're really trying to do is get late game power. They're just extra stuff that can help you out. Turn 3, you'd like to play Debris where possible. Debris is actually very important. There's another option to play Debris outside of turn 4. You can also end up Debris on turn 5, so don't freak out if you're sort of missing things early. You do want 1 play by turn 3, though, so if you've missed 1, 2, and 3, it's possible, if you don't have Man-Thing especially, that you can be in a lot of trouble. If your opponent has been playing a lot on those early turns and you can just Man-Thing a lane, you've sort of made up for a lot of that power, though. It's very similar to when the opponent has played a lot of 1s, and then you just on turn 3 play Killmonger, and you've sort of done... Killmonger's become like a 3-7. Man-Thing will be like a 4-11, and that makes up for a lot of the missed out stuff here. Sentry is not as good at that point. If you're not hitting your early draws, Sentry is significantly worse, but you're still fine. To play Sentry here, especially if you have hit those early drops, at that point, you've got multiple plays. If you played Sentry, especially Debris and Hazmat is great because Annihilus is then going to be absolutely incredible. You can even end up once in a blue moon. It's rare, but if your opponent's really flooding, you can end up Hazmatting on 3, Sentrying on 4 in order to Annihilus for a clog on 5, or if you've got one of those extra energy locations, that'll work as well. But you've got Debris and Hazmat on turn 5. That'll often clog a location while making their stuff weaker, and then you're just dropping like a stupidly huge Ajax, and you've got other spots clogged, and you should be fine. Or you can drop Annihilus or Cersei here just fine. I'm partial to the Debris and Hazmat playline, but Annihilus and Cersei are really strong options. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to play Abomination and one of your 5s. Your goal here is Abomination and Ajax. Ajax is the probably biggest regular card in the game. He's the biggest card with the least work at the very least, because Ajax is very often a 5/20. So you should be able to win a lane with Ajax. Meanwhile, if you don't have Ajax, Annihilus or Cersei are fine here. Obviously, if you end up going Sentry and not Man-Thing, then the Annihilus Cersei playline goes way up in the what the hell I'm doing play pattern line. Generally speaking, though, I'm looking to Ajax and Abomination. Annihilus or Cersei and Abomination are also freaking game winners and then some. Cool. That's how you play this deck. We're going to take one last look at it, and then we're going to look at that thumbnail deck that you're not going to want to miss. It is absolutely insanely good. Like, the deck is so strong. So one last look at this deck. Again, this is a mishmash of 3 different packages. We have a tiny Annihilus package of Abomination. Annihilus package. We have a tiny Evolutionary package with Abomination and Evolutionary. We've got the Annihilus package of Sentry, Annihilus, and Hood. Ajax goes perfectly with Hazmat, and then everything else here is sort of trying to tie those cards together. Viper obviously being a thing you can do with Hazmat on turn 5. I didn't specifically call it out, but Viper is a thing you can do with Hazmat on turn 5. in order to get rid of a void when you're about to hazmat, and then you can still do one of your other late turn plays. Really cool deck. Props to Raven for coming up with this one, and I urge you to give it a try. I also urge you to hit that sub button. We're doing our very, very best to hit 15,000 subs by the end of the year, and we're hoping you can help us get there. A sub would go a long way, obviously. So would a like and a comment, which tell the YouTube algorithm you find value. We give you at least 3 new decks every single weekday. Sometimes we're giving you 4 today, and sometimes we give you like 10. So we give you more brand new, proven, working Marvel Snap decks than anyone. If you're willing to and you find value, hitting that sub button would mean a lot. We're also in the middle of the biggest giveaway in Marvel Snap. We give away 5 season passes this week, 5 next week, and then 1 a week for the rest of the season. So we've got our season pass giveaway for the Symbiote Spider-Man season going on right frickin' now. What you have to do is you have to sub this video, like this video. At some point in this video, I'm going to ask you a question. Literally on like 2 slides from now. I'm going to ask you a question. You answer that question in the comments, and every day's video will have a season pass winner in it. So yesterday's video, if you missed it, my first video back from vacation, is there's a question in it. That video will carry a season pass within it. Someone who commented on that video will get a season pass. Same thing for today, same thing for tomorrow. You get the idea. Cool. Let's get to one more thing. We host major tournaments here. We are doing our very best to help Marvel Snap have a competitive scene. Almost any major Marvel Snap tournament you've heard of in recent vintage is sponsored in some form or fashion by Snap Judgments. That's me. That's us. So we host our own big tournament. It is a league-based tournament where you play 1 game a week in pods of about 30. The winner of that pod after a top 8 gets a season pass. Then the pod winners compete for $500 more in prizes. Play with some great Marvel Snap creators. The only caveat is you have to be a $1 patron to enter. We lose money on these tournaments, straight up. We lose money on hosting Marvel Snap tournaments constantly. What we're trying to do is not take a complete bath here. So we've got a $1 Patreon entrance fee at the Patreon, patreon.com/snapjudgments on the screen. And in addition, as a $1 Patreon, we've got an updated, cool, new version that should be posted, if not right as you're here, at some point today. We've got a very, very cool version of our deck archive. We've got like an updated and newer version of our deck archive. So if you're interested in checking out all the best decks for the last several months of Marvel Snap, all the like categorized. So if you're like, I want decks that are junk deck, you'll be able to sort by junk, all that kind of stuff for our deck archive. Make sure you check that out. Cool. Cool. Next up, we've got Camworst Pixeling. Get it? Hulkling, Pixieling. Greed. This is a greed deck. This is the greediest deck ever. One of the greatest decks ever. It is super powerful. This comes from KM Worst. Yes, the name is a takeoff of Campbest. KM Worst is, however, their own person. This is a very, very powerful, if fairly expensive deck. This list offers a ton of power and ways to win. It basically says I'm going to cheat so much that I can just beat whatever my opponent wants to do. All right, so you can find Cam Worst on Twitter at twitter.com/CamWorst. He'll be on the podcast soon. Got to get that scheduled. Required cards are Pixie, Mobius, Hawkeye Kate, I said Mobius twice, Wiccan, and Goliath. You actually need Goliath for this. I know this deck looks expensive, but Season Pass card, Series 4 card, Pixie, which hopefully you got the same time you got Wiccan, and then Goliath, right? So, like, this is not an unachievably difficult to get deck. However, Hulkling's best replacement is Red Hulk. If not, you're going to have to try and find a 6-drop that offers a lot of power. Whatever the best power 6 you can find is perfectly fine in that spot. Maybe give Scar a try. Maybe give... I mean, honestly, you can do worse than just Hulk. Okay. Hope Summers can be Cassandra Nova Speed, Nocturne, Gladiator, and if you don't have any of those higher series cards, Polaris is fine. Nico or Bob can be Iceman, Snowguard, Ant-Man, and I'm partial to any of these situations, Nightcrawler. Cam Worst actually suggested his own replacement, so thanks, Cam. All right. Question of the day. I'm going to go card by card for this. I don't go card by card often. I'm considering adding a section where I go card by card for the feature deck, the thumbnail deck of each day. If you like when I go card by card, let me know in the description to the video. If you think the turn by turn does that job well enough and that just takes extra time, let me know that in the description. I don't have to add that. It's a thing I'm considering adding at least here and there. All right, so the purpose of each card in the deck. Maria Hill is a 2-drop that is specifically good in Wiccan decks. She adds a 2 to hand. That works incredibly with Kate Bishop. What that means is if you go Maria Hill Kate, you're guaranteed to have the 2 cards on 3 you need to trigger Wiccan. That's obviously incredibly strong. That's her main use here. The other thing is sometimes you end up with a really important 2-drop. It's just nice to pull that off. you can end up with specifically, I like hitting Shadow King an awful lot. It can hit Pixie for you or Hawkeye for you, Kate Bishop Hawkeye for you when you don't have those cards. All these things are extremely powerful. Maria Hill is amazing in Wiccan decks. It's really also nice to see that card back. It was a card that was in when it first became a 1/2, a lot of early Loki decks for the original Loki, and then fell out of favor in those decks as those decks changed over time. But Maria Hill is excellent in these decks. Nico, meanwhile, is in basically every Pixie deck, fundamentally for one simple reason. Destroy and draw 2 is overpowered with Pixie. It lets you figure out what you're going to do when you're going to do it. You're also completely fine turning a Pixie, a Hawkeye, or a Maria Hill into a demon as necessary. And then the rest of the benefits are just smaller, but still nice. If Pixie's a 2/3, that's a suddenly better card, right? If Kate Bishop is a 2/5, that's a significantly better card. There's stuff like that she offers. Moving to the right is not always great, but hey, sometimes that'll be a +2 power location, a location you couldn't get into, changing a key location, a limbo that your opponent has made, so on. You'll hold Nico for those things, and it's extremely strong. Hydra Bob is here just as the best statted 1-drop in the game. You do a lot of work running a card like Miles Morales for a 1/6 or Stature for a 1/7. Hydra Bob is just a 1/5. Yes, the snap ability can hurt you, but this is just very good stats. Considering how often we ran cards like the previous Nocturne or Copycat in order to have a powerful thing to do with a with 5 power, Hydra Bob just being a 1-drop that offers that is really strong. That's literally all it's here for. The other smaller caveat use it has is that you can play it on Hope Summers and then move it off with Hope Summers with a snap, and that has some value as well. Pixie is one of the key cards of the deck. Pixie and Wiccan are your main energy cheats. Hope is a backup plan. Pixie is amazing here. She becomes a snap condition in certain situations we'll talk about next, but you do have 3 6-drops and a 5-drop, and if you can get any one of those cheap enough, if you can get any one of those 1, you are suddenly ridiculously ahead, especially if you can get one of those a 1 and play it with like Claw. Then you are very, very likely to win the game. If you can get one of those to be a 1-drop with a Hope Summers, right? Like let's say you have a Hulkling, that costs 1 and an Goliath, and you've played a card on Hope in the previous turn, you can now play both of those. That's game-winning, game-changing. Pixie is absolutely incredible. Kate Bishop, we already sort of discussed in relation to Maria Hill. Because Kate Bishop creates 2 1-drops, she is another card that is in almost every Wiccan deck that's not running Quicksilver and Domino, because what she means is you have to run a critical mass of 2-drops in order to guarantee you're going to hit a 2 for Wiccan, right? Kate Bishop says since you're running those 2-drops, if you play Kate on turn 2, she and one of those 2-drops on turn 3 is just an extra way to win. Mobius is here largely because of Pixie. The Mobius-Pixie interaction should be well known at this point, but if it's not for any of you, what Mobius does is say you get the more beneficial of Pixie's costs. So your Hydra Bob, if you win Pixie Mobius, is guaranteed to be 1, while your Goliath can still be a 1 as well. That is obviously a ridiculously huge benefit, and thus many Pixie decks run Mobius. The other real benefit of Mobius is found in Loki. Loki is one of the best cards in the game. Loki is all over the place. Mockingbird is in an absolute ton of decks, and Mobius solves a lot of your problems with those cards in particular. Hope Summers is your backup energy cheat. She's here for that extra Pixie play, yes, but her other option is sometimes you're not going to see Pixie or Wiccan. Pixie and Wiccan are your high rolls. They're your goals for the deck, right? But if you need something else, and a third plan of Hope Summers is great. If you end up going Hope Summers into a couple of cheaper cards, let's say you play Hope on 3, and then you go Hydra Bob and Kate, or Hydra Bob and Mobius on 4, you can now immediately drop a Hulkling, Magneto, Goliath, which is pretty damn good for turn 5 and gets you ahead of winning the game. Wiccan's +2 energy is one of the keys to the deck. It's why you're running 3 1s and 2 2s, and then one of your 1s generates a 2, and then you're running 3 3s. Wiccan is not as good as Pixie here. Pixie is the main play, but Wiccan is amazing. If you get Wixen and Pixie, for the love of God, snap. But Wiccan is extremely strong in this extremely greedy type of deck. This is one of the 2 major homes. Wiccan goes in very greedy decks and decks that want to run a lot of small things. Think Bounce or the KM Best style deck that was running like Collector and then all the little things. Those are generally the homes of Wiccan, like sort of Loki, Werewolf, or Monkey decks, and then really, really greedy decks. If you like those, hopefully you got Wiccan. Claw is about the most stats you get on 5 without any extra trouble. It's also a card that most people don't particularly play around, especially if you're playing it with a 1-cost 6 on turn 6. Thank you to Pixie. Claw also on turn 6 when you have 8 energy is relatively strong. Again, especially after Pixie, especially with a bunch of cards played on Hope Summers, this is a thing you can do, and you can end up sort of cheating and winning a lot of cubes. Because Claw is a 4 and then an 8, opponents don't often play around that. People will play around a Doom on turn 6 fairly often, but very rarely does anyone bother to play around Claw. Alioth is a 6/10. It's a game winner. If you haven't been playing Alioth lately, if you haven't seen Alioth lately, it's time to start playing that card again. It was one of the best cards in Marvel Snap, and then it was a 6/8 and it was kind of mediocre, and then it became a 6/10, and now it's phenomenal. It is huge and absolutely stomps out certain decks. If you can guarantee yourself priority, a lot of decks just immediately fold. Think many bounce decks, especially Werewolf, where you can basically turn off the on reveals that they're planning to use. Move decks where you can say, no thank you, this move doesn't happen, so all the other moves are messed up. Surfer decks, all that kind of thing just dies to Alioth as long as you can get priority, and if you can play Alioth with another card, then you are just in heaven. Let's skip Hulkling and instead talk about Magneto. Magneto on turn 5 offers an insane clog opportunity because he's moving all 3 and 4 cost cards that he can. He will almost always clog a location, and because you have such access to such power, you should be able to win that location. Magneto and Claw, when you're clogging, win most locations, which is obviously great. Be wary of a Jeff Nocturne move card or a Kitty Pryde in those situations, but outside of that, you should be totally fine with Magneto. Other than that, he's just really big stats. He's the biggest stats with an actual upside in the game right now. While the other option being Red Hulk for that, obviously. Meanwhile, we have Emperor Hulkling, who gives you a lot of optionality. Hulkling lets you know things that you don't otherwise. Again, Hulkling can be Red Hulk if you don't like the extra variants, but this is a variance-heavy deck, right? So if you ended up going Pixie into Mobius into Wiccan, right, and Hulkling wasn't exactly ideal, you'll very often be able to just play like a fairly even or neutral card at 11 power and be perfectly happy, which is just a viable place to go if you're looking for a list. Hulkling is not a requirement for this list, but he does offer something that Red Hulk doesn't, in extra unpredictability. Red Hulk will win you more games, but not lose you more cubes, but not net you as many cubes, whereas Emperor Hulkling will get you those cubes when he wins you those games. All right, so again, now is a great time to answer that question if you haven't already. Did you like the card by card, or would you prefer I just get to the turn by turn? Just for the record, this is 10-0 in Infinite Conquest, got Cam Worst into the top 40, and broke 9k snap points, which is the level of snap points where you're just at the top of the world. So this is absolutely top-notch stats for this deck. This is a legitimate powerhouse of a deck that can compete with anything. So turn 1, you want Maria Hill. If you need a 2 or have Kate, and that's better than your other ones. If you don't need that and you are managing hand size, you can skip Maria Hill. Turn 2 is Pixie, and as long as you have at least 2 of your big things left in deck, you definitely want to snap on Pixie. Got it? You can snap on Pixie if you have at least 2 of your big things, and please immediately snap if you have 3 of your big things left in your deck when you can Pixie. Those cards are better than Kate. Sorry, that card is better than Kate, and obviously Maria Hill's 2 is an option here as well. Please be wary. Sometimes you're going to snap on Pixie, and like Pixie's still going to betray you even when you have all the big stuff in the deck, because all the big stuff can just shuffle with each other, and cards can shuffle with themselves. So there is that downside for Pixie, but it's fine. You just take that risk because the upside is just so many cubes that like sometimes you're going to run for 2 in these situations. C'est la vie. Mobius, meanwhile, is the card to play after Pixie. If you have Pixie, you always want to play Mobius next. If not, you're perfectly fine playing Hope. And a 2+1 is an option, obviously, if you don't have Hope Summers. You're not running Thena, so you don't need to go out of your way to do that 2+1 play here. Wiccan is your turn 4 play, and you are snapping if your opponent is stumbling at all. If their curve doesn't look ideal, if you're like, what are they doing? They're missing turns, they're not using energy properly, then Wiccan is a snap condition. Wiccan's not a guaranteed win in the same way like Pixie is if she goes off, but if your opponent is missing stuff and all of a sudden you have 2 extra energy, you're probably going to win that game. You're very heavily favored, and that's why you'd like to snap. Your Wiccan and snapping Obviously, Wiccan snapping if you can trigger Wiccan, yes. And then if not, you'll just play a card or 2 cards on Hope Summers. Turn 5, ideally, you're playing a 6. You would really like Magneto to Clog, Hulkling if the location is good. Sometimes you'll Goliath because Hulkling will be like a Ultron or something that you want to play on the last turn. And you're fine playing Claw if you've missed some things. This deck is fine sometimes just playing fairly, right? And let's take a quick look, right? Like, because if you end up going Hydra Bob, Hawkeye, Hope, and then you end up playing like Nico and a couple arrows, and then you end up going Claw Goliath, that's going to win a reasonable number of games of Marvel Snap. That's not like a terrible game plan to just win. And then so like your goal is to end up going Claw if that happens, and then you're trying to play Goliath, and ideally 2 big cards to end the game. That's not always going to happen, but when it does, you're in really great shape. Next up, we're going to talk about the Dream Team, tell you what that is, and then we're going to talk about another great Hulkling deck, and I'm going to give you some top players' opinions on that card. So Camworth's deck is stellar if you have access to, like, basically, if you have access to Pixie and Wiccan, let's not jam those cards together. If you have access to Pixie and Wiccan and Mobius, you should totally be playing this deck in Goliath. Alright, the Stream Team. If you want to see gameplay for these decks, please check out the Stream Team. Today is Thursday, so the great Parry Manilow will be streaming these decks. Please go check him out. At some point today, the great GamingwithFlashX as well will have a video up of yesterday's decks. Yesterday, we exclusively had the #1 ranked deck in Marvel Snap right now, so please do watch that. Alright, Buddy's Tech Knight. We feature a lot of Buddy decks on the channel. I think Buddy is a phenomenal deck builder, extraordinarily underrated, and this is Buddy's Tech Knight list. I think that this is super, super clever, and it's not as expensive as it looks. Black Knight is, in fact, the only high series card you really need to make this work, so hopefully you have Black Knight, and if you do so, you can give this list a whirl. I think Invisible Woman is the real secret sauce to this list, and it is a brilliant addition to the card list. So this won an Infinity border and has been very successful thus far. Obviously, Hulkling is not required. I'm not sure if there's a deck Hulkling is actually required for. He's very good in some of these decks, but I don't know if he's ever required. Copycat can be whatever 3. Polaris if you have a if you need a Series 3 card. If you have Series 4 or 5 cards, Gladiator, Nocturne, Cassandra are all fine. Hulkling can be Magneto or Red Hulk here. You're perfectly fine in those situations. Cersei can be Sarah or Cannonball. I have not liked Cannonball right now. I keep hearing Cannonball's good. People keep telling me Cannonball's good. Cam Best thinks Cannonball's good. Buddy thinks Cannonball's good. Buddy Lean is Buddy's Twitter. I'm sorry I didn't write it today. Den thinks Cannonball's good right now. Every time I play a Cannonball deck, he loses me games. So he's like, he's just not, like, he's a 50-50, and then, like, I'm like, any other big card here would win. I don't like Cannonball right now, but I keep being insisted that it's good. I'd rather have Cersei, obviously, and then I'd rather have Sarah. Black Knight is needed, and I want to fit Zabu, because Zabu on turn 5 with another 3 seems like it would be an extremely powerful thing to do, but I'm not 100% sure how to do that outside of cutting Invisible Woman. I guess that could actually probably be Copycat if you want to have that as a Copycat replacement. Alright, so this is both powerful and unexpected. Black Knight, if you can get the shard going and you don't think your opponent has a Shadow King, is a snap condition if you can get a discard of particularly Infinite. You're fine getting Hulkling sometimes, but Infinite is your goal here. The idea of having Hulkling in this deck is that sometimes Hulkling is a thing you don't want to play, and then when you Black Knight it away, it doesn't matter because it's still just an 11 power shard. You're fine snapping. I would, even if I played Black Knight, not snap until after 2. People are going to run more often when you do that. Yes, that is 100% true. But snapping into Killmonger is just popular enough to make that unfortunate. Red Guardian and Shadow King are just popular enough to make that unfortunate. So I prefer the extra little bit of waiting. But if you are bold and careful, you can snap earlier than that. You can also Blade if you already have a Ghost Rider in hand and you're hitting one of the big 2. Feel free to just Blade away that Hulkling as necessary as well, if it's a card that you're never going to play. Alright, turn 2, Black Knight over Invisible Woman is your general goal. Invisible Woman is again great here, absolutely just the secret sauce to this deck in my opinion. Turn 3, you would like to Lady Sif. Again, your aim here is to Lady Sif when you have either Black Knight or Ghost Rider going. You're trying to hit Infinite or Hulkling. And yeah, that's it. You're fine playing any of the earlier plays. You're fine playing Copycat pending what she is. Turn 4, you can drop a shard relatively safe. If they don't have Shadow King, the shard is safe. Remember that shard is Shang proof, so you are still perfectly fine to play shard on a Death's Domain type location and just say this is here now. Shang and Ghost Rider are great. You can Ghost Rider if you're pretty sure they don't have Shang-Chi. For example, the Moon Knight deck that's all over the place does not run Shang-Chi. So, like, if I see that, I can just happily play my Ghost Rider and just get an Infinite out and not have to stress it. If not, you're going to play one of those cards behind Invisible Woman. If you need to drop then Cold, that's fine. If you need to just drop a Shang-Chi or Enchantress because you got, like, nothing, you're fine as long as you got Cersei. If you can hit something important with Cersei or Shang-Chi early, if you can hit something important with Shang-Chi or Enchantress early and then Cersei it, that is another snap condition. Like if you know that they're, if they drop an early Mockingbird, right? And you're like, well, I can Shang that and then Cersei that off, and that's a lane that's ridiculously mine. That's such a big tempo swing that it's very often worthwhile to end up snapping. Next up, we've got Cersei, is your goal here as a general rule. If not, Shadow King and Lady Sif are fine, but you're really hoping to Shang or Enchantress and play Blade. You get your shard there to end the game, and then you got Shang or Enchantress to get rid of something. Turn 6 is either Hulkling or control card Shard Rider plus Shadow King. Cool, so you can end up Shanging and Shadow King to end the game, Enchantress and Shadow King, or play the Shard or Ghost Rider plus Shadow King. Any of those are perfectly fine. Let's do some expert opinions on Hulkling, and then it is Galactus time. Last look at this one before we move on. And yes, I did buy that Hulkling variant. Thank you. All right, top player thoughts for Hulkling. Tanjo, the #1 player in November and June, top 10-ish now, says Emperor Hulkling seems okay, but is replaceable. And that's we're gonna see a lot of that. There weren't a lot of opinions on Hulkling. A lot of people didn't really care about the card. Cavallo, who's currently in the top 40, we featured a great Cavallo deck, I believe, yesterday or the day before, says the most replaceable 6-drop ever. Yep, I can see that. I think that this is a card that you can fundamentally make almost any other card in almost any deck without losing too very much. But says extremely mid, worst card of the season. I think that's also without debate at this point. We'll talk more about speed later this video, but this isn't on the same planet as Kate Bishop, Marvel Boy, or Wiccan, which are all very good cards that go in very good decks. This is a card that can go in good decks, but does not have to. W, the best and most impactful deck builder in the history of Marvel Snap, says, I'm out on it, not any decks I want to play with it. Okay, fair enough. Cam Worst, who's in the top 40, says, worse than Alioth, Magneto, better than Red Hulk, outside of, what's the name of the card? Arishem, Few Homes. Okay, so Few Homes outside of Arishem, we found one, Cam Worst found one that was very successful, but even in that card, it was distinctly replaceable. Cool. He thinks it's better than Red Hulk, though, which is still a worthwhile thing to know, right? It's just that Magneto Series 3 card probably has more homes than either of those. Sizer, the #1 player in both December and July, says, it reminds me of Valentina. The 6-drops from her were really useful, and the 6-drops from Emperor Hulkling are really useful. Fair enough. It's just a 6/11 stat stick a little bit too often, and the 6/11 stats is something you can get without the potential downside. Without the potential upside, but the upside doesn't seem to be as prevalent as one would think. I spoke to several other good players about this. Jimmy Dickens is amazingly unimpressed. I don't have the exact quote. The slideshow was done by the time they got back to me. But JD Metaldino thinks that this is a good card. It just happens to be replaceable. And so since it's so expensive, it doesn't really have that much value. I think that's where we're going to end up with this card. I'm going to give you a review and recommendation for tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to end up with this card in particular. All right, Black Dama's Overdrive. I was away the day that Dama shared this, and I kept getting messages while I was away of people winning things with this, climbing high into infinite, getting infinity tickets, and now infinity borders, people getting infinite for the first time with this. So if you have access to this list, I think that this is a super successful list. It offers a lot of power, and especially if you miss Galactus, this is a really cool deck, because who doesn't want to play them some Galactus, right? I guess a lot of people don't want to play Galactus, but if you like Galactus, this is a wonderful place to go. This one is a little expensive. You are going to need Iron Lad, Wiccan, and Galactus for this list, but you should be okay otherwise. You also really need Kate, because you need Kate and Wiccan decks. My bad. Ham and Nebula can be Iceman and Nightcrawler just fine. Honest to God, you can just run Quicksilver and change some stuff up if you needed to. Zabu, Kate, Lad, Wiccan, and Galactus are all needed. That's a lot of needed cards. Zabu, because you really want a Wiccan on 3 with this list. That's why both Psylocke and Zabu are here. Alioth and Red Hulk can be Null, Hulkling, Shang, or Cannonball. Cannonball is really, really good in Galactus decks. It's just Galactus isn't good enough for people to have realized it yet. All right. So turn 1 is Nebula. Usually you're fine playing Spider-Ham, but Nebula, generally speaking, if the left location is one you could end up later playing Galactus, you want to play Nebula blind elsewhere to encourage people to play elsewhere so that you can get that Galactus off. Turn 2 is Psylocke or Zabu if you can play either Iron Lad or Wiccan on 3. If not, you're going to play Kate Bishop. Turn 3 you would like to Wiccan. If not, you're Iron Ladding to try and... So you sort of know if you're going to hit Wiccan or not at that point. If you don't have either of those, your goal is to wave to try to Galactus. If you don't have Galactus and you have... you had Kate, you'll play like an Arrow and a Zabu or an Arrow and a Psylocke at this point. You can also play a 2+1, obviously, that's what I was saying. And playing that Kate here is really interesting because, well, if you end up Wiccaning, right, like you have that Kate Acid Arrow, that makes Galactus fundamentally a 7 in that location, and that's often enough to get that extra bit to win that location, which will trigger Galactus. Well, obviously, play the Acid Arrow first, please. So it's not on the same side, and Galactus will actually trigger. Turn 4, Wiccan Lad, same thing. You can play Galactus, or you can just drop Professor X. If you can drop Professor X on 4, you're usually pretty safe. A lot of the move cards, since Nocturne is no longer what she was, have left the meta. White Widow has replaced Jeff in a lot of decks. Professor X is actually pretty decent secretly. Turn 5 is the exact same thing as turn 4, and then turn 6, you're playing Alioth or Red Hulk. Nice and simple, right? Super straightforward list. Really straightforward, really powerful, super duper fun. Props to Black Dama, who was on the podcast like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Awesome human being, awesome deck. Check it out. Cool. Make sure you check out Dama on Twitter as well. All right, questions of the day. We got a whole bunch, and then we're going to be out of here. So Sugar wants to know what happened if mulligans were a thing. I think this would be a combo-based game. I think mulligans would almost guaranteed be too strong in Marvel Snap because decks are too small. You will see your combos more often. If that, I think it fundamentally turns Marvel Snap into like a combo off game. I don't like that. I don't want that. We also don't really need mulligans. Specifically, Quicksilver and Domino were added to the deck. I don't know if people know this lore, but Quicksilver and Domino were added to Marvel Snap, not for Wiccan and Speed to come out 2 years later, but as a way to say, well, if you really think hitting your 1s and 2 drops are that important with your mulligans, here's Wiccan and here's Domino and Quicksilver. So we have that, but I really don't want mulligans in this game. I don't think it would be. Mayor Young 1 asks why no bounce missions, and I think the reason is that the bounce cards are Series 3 cards. Beast and Falcon and Kate Bishop is Series 4. Kitty Pryde is Series 4, while the other 2 bounce cards are Series 3, whereas Destroy, if you need Destroy, you've got Carnage, and Carnage in Series 1, along with Deathlock in Series 1, and Killmonger in Series 2. And then you've got all the discard cards outside of MODOK, basically, in early series, so you can do some discardy stuff. It's not good, but you can do it in earlier series, whereas I think Bounce being all Series 3 is why we don't have Bounce missions, which sucks, because you know I'd love me some Bounce missions. But also, how do you do that, right? Like, there's only 2 cards that really do the Bounce thing, so what's going to be Bounce 4? And now you have to get a full location of Bounce. Like, now you're just like, did I draw Falcon? And I don't know. Like, I think we need more Bounce cards for that. Luckily, we have another Bounce card coming. Here for the snaps asks how I name my decks, and I just name it player and archetype. So I have like a deck named Derek Evo and a deck named Derek Mock, right? I have a deck named Safety Slayer, right? Like I just have a deck that will let me know who made it and which of the decks that person made this is. That's basically how I name most of my decks. If it's my deck, I name it just pure archetype. The only deck I've made that I've kept is the deck I hit Infinite with this season. It's the Loki Move deck, and it is literally named Loki Move. So, nothing fancy here. All right, Fat Nick asks how I like the change to Prisms, and it's better than it was, but I'm going to be honest, and I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. I can't believe I said Debbie Downer with a straight face. I'm really sorry. Please don't unsub. I'm not trying to be negative in a way and like yuck people's yum, but I don't like them. I think they're cool on a couple cards, but those are few and far between. I'm not a big fan. I'm happy people like them. I'm happy people are building decks out of them and enjoy them, but they're not for me. Props to Second Dinner, though, for giving people a thing fundamentally for free that they would want, because they don't do that all that often, and it's very cool that they did. Doctors, Mrs. Bernard, I don't know, sure, whatever that is. Asked about my vacation. So I went to Colombia. My wife, we went to Bucaramanga, where my wife's, where my wife was raised. We were there for like a day, and then we went to a small town called Barichara. It's the town that said that so white, Barichara, which is slightly better. It's been a long day. I'm back at work, friends. I'm so tired. Okay, which is the town that Encanto is based on. If you saw the movie Encanto, which was really good, and if you didn't see it, especially if you have kids, 100% worth seeing. But it's the town where Encanto's from, and it was gorgeous, and we had a wonderful time. Was it extremely restful? No, not like a billion times restful, right? We were doing family stuff. We were traveling around a lot. It was a lot of movement, but it was a really, really great time. Very wholesome, very fun. I came back. Anyone who doesn't know, by the way, who's not subbed and still here, Monday was my birthday. So we came back. We got home Sunday at midnight. So I woke up. We got home literally as Sunday became Monday. It was my birthday. It was my birthday Monday. And then Tuesday I had nothing to worry about. Another procedure. Then Wednesday I'm back to work. Thursday I'm back to work. It has been a lot. It's been a lot. This will be the only video for the day, by the way, if anyone's wondering. I've got something really cool to talk about the OTA on Saturday, so I'm only going to do sort of smaller things about that. Until then, you'll see what it is. If you love Marvel Snap content at all, you're not going to be disappointed. But yeah, that's what's going on with me right now. Meanwhile, Swedish Zombie, and you spelled zombie differently, I'm sorry, but I didn't bring myself to copy it, wants to my speed thoughts because I was away. This is Speed. Speed is anyone who missed it, a 3/3 ongoing +1 power for each turn in which you spent all your energy. Speed is a very good card. Speed is completely replaceable. Very often I play Speed as I'm trying to make Speed bigger, and like as I'm enjoying this card, I'm like, wow, that's just a good card. I realized that I could be getting mostly the same thing out of Gladiator. I was watching someone play a bounce deck earlier. I wish I remembered who. And they were just running Gladiator, right? Because it was an on-reveal, and that on-reveal would help move Werewolf, and it was still 8 power. And I was like, yeah, Speed's really good. Speed's a very good Marvel Snap card. Speed is just a very good but replaceable Marvel Snap card. This is a better card than Hulkling. This is a really, really top-notch card, right? I think it's significantly better than Polaris. But I don't think it's required. I think Gladiator, being a card that you can get for significantly cheaper, makes it every bit as good. However, if you like specific decks that really curve out, that play all their energy each turn, things that like run Wiccan, then Speed is going to be a very, very good card for you that you're not going to be sad to have. And I'm playing it a lot more than I thought I was. I think it's really good in like the sort of pixie decks, the blink decks, the decks that just want something of middling cost that has a lot of power. It's a very strong card. But because so many other cards are similar and all this really offers is power, it's not a required card in any way, shape, or form. That's my Speed take. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments, as well as obviously all the other stuff. But I think Speed is very good and in no way required. This isn't Nocturne, I don't think. This isn't Copycat, I don't think. This is Gladiator now, right? Where you're like, wow, I'd really like that card for a couple decks. But if you don't have it, you're not locking yourself out of too much. All right, certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. If you're willing to join up on Patreon, I'd really appreciate it. Please check it out, patreon.com/snapjudgments. I'd like to say thank you to the great and original friend, Abigail Geeslin, Mandatory Burnout. Hey, Burnout? Cables, regardless. It's a word. David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, hey Dire. LAB, always kind. FaThorNewman, who just hit partner on Twitch. Let's freaking go. Way to go, Newman, my teacher friend. Good Dog Gamer. Hello, Good Dog. Hope you're doing well. Shoot me a message, please. We haven't talked in a bit. Worth catching up. Deuce Volt. Hello, Deuce. Ink. I am Frostman. You sure are. And Frostman, I saw you post that you weren't enjoying alliances. Really sorry you're not joining them. If you want to shoot me a message and we can try and figure out how to help that happen, let me know. I don't know what to do, but we'll talk. Jane Everett. Hey, Jay. Corwin. Primed Ryan. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. You know why. Ryan Burke. Hey, Burke. I grew up, by the way, on a street in the Bronx, or the cross street I grew up on is Burke Avenue. So whenever I see that name, I get happy. Caretakes Lee, the king of questions. Coming all the way from Japan, it's Goyre. Black Dahlia, welcome back, Black Dahlia. Thanks for coming back. Pyrophoros, hey Pyro. The Goat Seeker, hope you're doing well. Den Man Falcon, check him out on YouTube. The best splits in the biz. Quid Pro Joe, hello Joe. The king of new Marvel Snap card content, Dr. Fat Nick. Great questions lately, Fat Nick. Keep it up. Ginger Prime, hey Ginge, hope you're doing well. Ratco, chilling in the top 4 of Snap Judgments League Season 3. Go Ratco. I'm not going to say I'm rooting for Ratco, but you know. Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone. Rob Silverman, hey Rob. The Bizza, Xverse V and Skippy G. Winner of Season 1 and sponsor of Season 3 and 4, Tommy Nyquist. The King of Brosborough. The Great Kazoo. Whoop. That was my kazoo sound. Did you like it? Jessica Gamble. Hey, Jess. Ryan Wood. Hey, Woody. Kev C. Hoda. Hey, Kev. Hope you're doing well. Luna Chris. Quantum Quinn. Just ridiculously cool names back to back. Junq. Clam. Heath Sage. Mod Supreme Models. The one and only Darth Theater. Joe P. Our newest friend. Thank you, Joe. Brian Kaufman. Tristan H. Martin. Jason B. J. D. McDonaldino, who is one of the people who gave me a really late reply today to that question. Hopefully JD is doing great, though. The Fuzzy Dumb Spectrumix. Woo! Matt H. We only have one Matt H. We're a single Matt H family now. What are we going to do? Hopefully this Matt H can provide for us. DJ Mikey Hedgings. No frickin' flex. Ocularis. Mr. Craig Sterry. Seamus. Hope you're doing well, Seamus. Haven't heard from you in a bit. Jonesy. Thank you. Jonesy was amazingly cool and helpful recently. So huge props to Jonesy, who you should also be checking out the Triple Threat on YouTube. Two Ties, our friend, my current alliance leader. Hope you're doing great, Two Ties. The great Lauren Whatevs, who was on the podcast that was on our channel this past Saturday. Which you should 1,000% subscribe to, check out. She covered for us, and she's got her own podcast now with Ree and Ben Roller. It's just rock star stuff. Go check it out. The Pirate King Tuccrr, one of the best Twitch streamers in the world. Wonderful and human being. Check him out on YouTube and Twitch, please. The Homie Man, who we miss. And of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for He's Got Secrets. All right, that's it for today. If you're interested in the #1 frickin' deck in Marvel Snap that only we had for you, this is the #1 deck on the Infinite Leaderboard. It's also the #5 deck on the Infinite Leaderboard for the past week. No one else had it. If you're interested, check right below me. Click, hit that sub button. Know we appreciate you, even if you don't, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow for another Snap Take. Hope the OTA is good. I don't know. Peace.